Today I'm looking at a reversion strategy. This trades reversion between swing high and swing low points. The code that I'm going to be writing is the basis of an expert. It has some room for improvement, and I'll try to mention some of those points as I go through, but it's a good starting point for you. And what you can see on the screen here is a chart while I'm running a back test without any improvements on that code at all. So let's get straight into the code and write this. So let's start with the code. I've got MetaTrader 5 open. I'll just open the editor, and I've already created a folder here called Swing Reversion underneath the Orchard folder. I'll right click that, new file, Expert Advisor. And now I'll just get rid of all of that and replace it. So now I have just the outline here, Swing Reversion, copyright, just a standard comment. I'm going to be using two of my standard functions in here, so I've just noted them along with the links where you can see more information about those, and I'll include those links in the description to the video. This one though, pips to double, it looks a little different in that video, so I might spend a little bit of time explaining that here. So before I go any further, I've already got the init, on dinit, and on tick. Let's just create these functions so that we can cover that off. Here is the isNewBar function. You would have seen that many times, so I'm not going to go through what it does. It basically returns true if a new candle has been opened on the chart. And now the pips to double function, this will look a little different to the video, but I've got a simple function called pips to double, which converts number of pips to a pricing size, if you like. It takes just a symbol and the number of pips. It uses another function here called points to double, and then pips to points. So it converts the number of pips to points and then points to double. Now, pips to points, there's no standard definition inside MetaTrader of what a pip is. It does have a definition of a point, which is the smallest decimal place. So I've taken a blunt approach, and I've simply said that if the number of decimals is 3 or 5, then there are 10 points in a pip, otherwise it's 1 point to a pip. And I think that's the sort of definition that everyone uses. And then points to double just multiplies symbol info double symbol point by the number of points. This particular strategy looks for swing high and low, and when the price moves between those two, it attempts to trade in the reverse direction. So if the price has come from a high to a low and now it's going up again, it will trade a short trade back towards the low, and the opposite if it's gone the other way. So I need a function to tell me what the recent swing high and swing low are. The video is not about how to find the swing high and the swing low, so I'm going to take a very simple shortcut approach and just use Donchian for this. Donchian just looks for the highest high and the lowest low within a certain number of bars. So I have these two functions, swing high and swing low. They take the swing period, which will be one of the inputs that we add, and the start bar, which defaults to 0, but I'm going to be using bar number 1 as the start because I want to know the high or low before the current bar. And the high then is just using the iHighest function, symbol period, high mode, swing period from the start bar, and just returns that. And the swing low is just the opposite, but using the mode low. So now let's cover some of the inputs that I'm going to need. I'm obviously going to need that swing period, and I'll make that 24, I think, for this. A swing fraction. So I said that I'm going to be trading back towards the most recent swing. I'm going to be trading in this case when I've moved 0.6 of the distance between the two recent swings. So if I've gone from high to low and now the price is going up again, when the price gets 60% of the way from low to the recent high, I will start to trade short. And of course the opposite. Trade gap pips, because this is an averaging system, it will open more trades if the first one doesn't immediately make a profit, and this is the gap between those trades. So it forms something of a grid, but it's not really a grid system because I'm using it as an averaging way to get out of a trade. And the average profit pips, each one of these trades, I want to make an average of 10 pips. Now, if I've got two trades open, one of them could make 20 pips and the other one none, so that's what averaging is all about. But that's how I'm going to set my profit target. I'm going to be trading a fixed volume, 0.01 lots. I've got a magic number and a trade comment, swing reversion 1.0. Now, because I'm trading, I'm going to include the trade class and use the C trade and C position info classes. So just include trade.mqh, and then a variable of type C trade, and C position info, and I'm just calling that position info. Now, in order to track my positions or my group of trades, and to know when to open a new trade, and to know when I've reached that target profit point, I need two values for each, for both the buy and the sell. I need to know the tail price, and that's the price of the lowest price buy trade or the highest priced sell trade. So that's the one furthest behind the opening position. So that's the tail price. And then the exit price is that price where I will have achieved the average profit. Now, I'm not doing anything special in this case with that average profit. I'm just looking at number of pips. So I'm not accounting for any commission or swap that might have occurred. I'm just going to be counting pips. That's one of the adjustments you might want to make to this particular expert. So for both the buy and the sell, I'm going to be tracking a tail price and an exit price. And I'll need a function later where I can calculate those. And then I need something to track the direction of trading. And this will depend whether the recent swing high was before the swing low or the swing low was before the swing high, because that will tell me whether I'm currently moving down in price or up in price and whether I want to buy or sell. And then I also have this entry price, which is that price that is 60% of the difference between the high and the low. So if the most recent swing was a swing low, then I'm going to be opening short trades, so the direction will be sell. And if the recent swing was a swing high, then the price is coming down, but I'm looking to take long trades, so that direction will be type buy. And now I have these two inputs, trade gap and average profit, both in pips, which means that when I use them, I need to convert from pips to double, as you've seen the function for that. I like to do that once because it just saves some compute cycles. So I'm going to have a couple of global variables to store these values. I'm just going to call those average profit and trade gap. So let's do some setup now inside the onInit function. First, I need to set the expert magic number inside the trade object. So let's just set expert magic number. And now every time I open a trade using that trade object, it will apply this magic number to the trade. Setting the direction to -1 and the entry price to 0, which are basically invalid values. And that tells me that I haven't had a direction set or an entry price set yet. And then, as I said, pips to double for average profit and trade gap. And now I don't want to trade as soon as you open the expert if you're in the middle of a bar. So I call this isNewBar function once, which will then return false in future calls until an actual new bar is created. If I didn't do that, then the very first time you call it, it's going to return true, while you might be in the middle of a bar or almost at the end of the bar. Now, update levels will do a number of things, but basically it will return the tail and exit prices. And it will do that by looking at all of the existing trades, calculating the average price, adding the profit to that, and then it will also look for the swing high and low and calculate the point where I would enter a new trade. So since I've referred to that function, I'll create that now. So, update levels. First, I need a swing high and a swing low, and I'm just using the swing high and swing low functions. And the reason I'm using the functions for these instead of just embedding the highest and lowest here is that, as I said, I've used a very simple Donchian, which is not a true swing high and swing low. I'm just using that for the example. But this lets you easily replace that with something else inside this swing high and swing low function. Now that will return the bar number for the high and the low. So then I want the price, and that's just the I high for the swing high and the I low for the swing low. And now I'm going to add another custom function here, update trade info, just because I didn't want to have it inline in this update levels. Update trade info will simply scan all of the existing trades to find the tail price and the average price. After that, it's possible that if I've had a particularly large candle, then the swing high and the swing low will be the same candle. And if that happens, I really don't have a direction. So I'll just set entry price to 0 and direction to -1 and return at that point. Now, once I've got that, the delta between the two, the distance between high and low, obviously just swing high price minus the swing low price. And then the entry delta, the price or the distance between the high and low where I will be entering a trade, is just swing delta multiplied by that swing fraction. Now, if the swing high is greater than the swing low, remember these are bar numbers, and bar numbers count backwards. So if the swing high bar number is greater than the low bar number, it means the swing high happened first. That means that I'm coming off the low and I want to trade back towards the low, which is a sell. So in this case, I'm setting the direction toward a type sell. Sell tail price has already been set when I called the update trade info. And if the sell tail price is equal to 0, it means there are no trades currently open or no sell trades currently open. And in that case, the entry price is just going to be the low price plus that entry delta. If I do have some sell trades open, then the entry price is going to be the tail price plus the trade gap. So that's that 50 pips above the sell tail price where I'll enter a new trade. And of course, there can only be buy or sell, so the else statement here, and then these are just the opposites. Order type buy, high price minus the entry delta in this case, and tail price minus the trade gap. So at the end of this function, I've set the entry price, and from this update trade info, I've set the tail price. So next thing will be to write this update trade info function. So update trade info, some setup here. I initialize the tail price and the exit price for both the sell and the buy. And just some internal variables that I'm going to use. There'll be a buy total, which is just the sum of all of the entry prices. A count, which will be a count of the number of trades. And then I'll calculate an average price of, or an average entry price for all of the buy trades, and then the same for the sell. And now I'm going to loop through all of the positions. This is my standard loop for int I equals positions total -1. While I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus. I always go backwards through these. The position info has a select by index function, so I'm passing in I. If that fails, and I can't think why it would fail, but if it does, then I was unable to select a position index I, so that continue will just go back to the next iteration of the loop. If the symbol for that position is not my current chart symbol, then it's from a different chart, so I can continue. And if the magic number is different, it's from a different expert, so I can continue again. So now if I get to this point, if that position that I've selected is a type buy, then firstly, if the tail price is equal to 0, meaning I haven't set one yet, or if the current opening price is less than the existing buy tail price, then I simply set that buy tail price to the position info price open. So that will constantly move the tail price downwards if it's a buy trade. And if I come through this loop and haven't found any buy trades, it will still be 0, which you saw earlier is my indication that there are no buy trades. But then the buy total is just adding the opening price and buy count plus plus, just to count the number of trades found. And of course, if it's not a buy, it must be a sell. So all of the same things, but these directions are opposite. So if the opening price is greater than the tail price, but the sell total is still just the sum and the sell count still plus plus. Once I'm through all of that, if buy count is greater than 0, it means I've found some buy trades. So I can actually calculate the buy average, which is just total divided by the count. And I'm casting the count to a double just to avoid situations where this might be detected as an integer and return an integer value. It shouldn't, but just in case. And then of course the exit price for a buy is that average price plus the average profit. The same thing then for a sell, but the exit price in this case is the average sell minus the average profit. So that takes care of everything in the update trade info, and that also completes the update levels function. So now we can go to onTick where I'm actually doing the processing. First thing is to call that new bar function. If it's a new bar, then I'm going to call update levels, because obviously if it's a new bar, the high or low may have changed, or the swing high and swing low may have changed. The next thing I want to do is close any trades where the price has reached the average price or the average profit price for that trade. So I've got a single function that I call close at average. I'll write that in a moment. But the other thing I do here, if the direction is less than 0, then I'll simply return. So if I haven't got a current direction, which usually only happens when I've just entered the expert, or if I've had a large candle where the high and the low are both the same candle, then I'll have no direction, so I can just return there. But I want to handle the closing before that. And now I want to know the opening price for a trade depending on the direction that I'm trading. So I just declare tick as of type structure MQL tick, and then I call symbol info tick to populate that with the current bid and ask prices. And then the open price, Simply, if the direction is a sell, then I'm going to be selling at the bid price, and if it's not a sell, I must be opening at the ask price. And now if the direction is buy and the open price is less than the entry price, so remember I'm buying in the opposite direction to the way price is moving because this is a reversion strategy. So if the open price has fallen below the entry price, I'll open a buy trade, and I have another function that I'll add in a moment. I just wanted to get through this in one block so that you can see the flow, but that's just open position for the direction of the open price. And then I have the same thing for sell trades. If the direction is a type sell and the open price is greater than the entry price. So let's do the open position first and then look at the close. Open position just takes a type and an entry price. So I just use the trade.position open. You might want to test this. I'm not testing to see whether it was successful. The arguments to that are just the symbol, chart symbol, the type from this argument, volume from the inputs, price from that argument, zero stop loss, zero take profit, and then the trade comment. After that, and I'm assuming that that was successful, I call update levels. So I have added a trade. I want to call the update levels and now know where my new tail price and average price are and so on. Overkill because update levels will also recalculate the high and the low, but it's really just a small amount of compute cycles because it doesn't happen very often. But also, as I mentioned here, could be a problem live. In MetaTrader 5, when you call position open from trade, it will return true if the order has been accepted. But when the order is accepted, it hasn't necessarily been executed and converted to a position. If you call update levels immediately after position open in live trading, you will quite often find that that position does not exist yet because the order is still out there. It can take 1 or 2 seconds for that order to open. So in a backtesting situation, this works because everything happens instantly. But in live trading, that may miss the new position and you will simply not detect it. And if it's the first position, then it will still look to your code like you have no positions open. So there are several things that you can do to avoid that problem, and it really depends on the expert. You can add a simple delay or a sleep immediately after the position open. You can also search for open orders as well as positions. Several things you can do. They all depend on how you want to handle it. And I'm just leaving that at this stage because this will still work in the backtest. So now closing trades. Closing trades when we've reached the average profit price. Again, I'm using an MQL tick to get the current bid and ask prices. I'm setting a Boolean to indicate whether something has been closed because at the end here, if something has been closed, I'm going to call update levels again. So if the sell exit price is greater than 0, that means I've actually calculated an exit price, and the ask price is less than or equal to that sell exit price, then I have reached the average exit price, and I'd call yet another function, just close all, but that takes a type. And then I just set that flag to true. And of course, the opposite for the buy. If the bid price is greater than or equal to the buy exit price, then I close all buy positions. The close all function, very simple. Another loop through all of the positions. The same conditions for testing that I've selected a position that matches this expert. One more position or one more test here to see that the type matches the position type that I've selected. And then I just trade position close for that position info ticket. Again here, I'm just trusting because I'm using backtest only. It's not robust enough for live trading. I'm trusting that this works. There is no test in here in case that position close fails. Just like at the beginning in OnTick, I have no test to see if the market is open. And I think with that, I have everything. We just try to compile. No errors, so I'm going to trust that I have everything working there, and we'll go out and run the test. Okay, so I'm going to run my swing reversion. I'm running it on KiwiCAD. Now, being a reversion, I think it will work best on symbols that are somewhat aligned. The preferred, or my preferred symbols for aligned currencies would be KiwiCAD, Aussie CAD, and Aussie Kiwi. They do drift apart a little, but they tend to come back over time. Remember that this is an averaging system, so it is possible to leave trades behind and if the price is continually moving in one direction, you get a lot of trades open. So that's why I like to use aligned symbols so that the price doesn't run away. Because without that, this does have the potential to blow your account. It is a risky type strategy. So the inputs are 24.6, 50, 10. These are as I left them. I've just increased the volume per trade to 0.1 because I'm starting with a $10,000 balance on this. So there's some drawdowns, some of them significant drawdowns, and then returning back again. The deposit load stayed below 10% and made a reasonable profit. This is a 2-year test, so it's not a huge profit, but you can adjust the numbers to try to improve that. And you might want to diversify and open multiple symbols at the same time. Just to show though the difference, you can see here that these drawdowns happened around September 23. If I change that to Aussie CAD and run the same test, you can see that the drawdown happened a little earlier and it happened almost from the beginning of trading. Deposit load was much higher here. Once everything came back together again, it just stayed in a nice line, but they were somewhat less aligned at this point than later. So that shows the importance of the alignment between the symbols. So that's all for this particular expert. As I tried to say several times, this is more of a skeleton for you to build on this. There are several places where it needs some code improvements, but from the test you can see that it's working as it is. So there are improvements to be made there in terms of handling failed trades and maybe optimizing some of the exit points. Hope this has been useful to you. If it has, click the like button, and if you click subscribe and then click the bell icon, you'll be notified when new videos are released. Thank you for watching.